With plenty of geopolitical risk and drama going on around the world, how can we make sense of it all? Well, one man who can help us is Bob Mason from FX Empire. Let's speak to him. Bob, thanks for joining us. In terms of drama on the global scene, nothing is quite outshining the US-China trade war at the moment. But the US has also distributed tariffs to plenty of other economies. Is there a solution in sight, or do you predict more chaos to come?
Trump has been talking about protectionism and addressing trade imbalances, through the presidential campaign, and he's definitely not changed his tone. China was ultimately, the US's target, irrespective of whether the US has, put trade tariffs on other economies. We saw Mexico and Canada being another target, but which was addressed rather quickly. As the world's second largest economy, China's not really going to be backing down that quickly. And that's really why we've seen the trade war extend and begin to bite, economies around the world. When you look at, trade as a percentage of GDP, you've got the likes of Germany and South Korea, they're in excess of 80%. So when you look at demand and exports, China's obviously seeing exports pull back. Demand from the US, does continue, but the tariffs are beginning to hurt. And while labour markets are supporting consumption, as this begins to drag out, you'll expect, labour market conditions in the US to also soften. What the effect that has ultimately on the US and Chinese economy is what we're already seeing. A slowdown, we're seeing monetary policy shifts occurring across major economies. It's contagion risk, though. It's not just China that's at risk. It's not just the US economy at risk. It's key trading partners with China, key trading partners with the US that are also, at risk of seeing a material slowdown. We saw the RBNZ give a surprise extra 25 basis point cut last week. The RBA's held, but that's looking like it's on its way. The UK economy is shrinking. US economy, we've seen the Fed move. So all in all, is there more pain to come? Definitely. I think, China's not backing down. Are they waiting for next year's presidential election? Possibly. But, if this goes on for another year, 15 months, we're going to be seeing much more than, just the odd rate cut. I think, the global financial crisis was over 6 years in the making. 2 years of a trade war with China, I think the knock-on effects will be quite significant.
Amazingly, it seems as though we haven't talked about Brexit in a while. What effect has Boris Johnson had, if any, and how has this affected the markets?
There have been many comparisons made between Donald Trump and Boris Johnson. One does even wonder whether Boris Johnson had Trump's ear during the leadership race. Johnson brings a very different tact of, political prowess, as it were, to the stage. As we've seen in his early days, he's not been prime minister for long. He's already laid down the law pretty much with the EU. No more negotiations until the backstop is dropped. The threat of, holding back the divorce bill if there's a no-deal departure. That's a very different approach to, his predecessor, Theresa May, who, over the course of a couple of years really failed to deliver a deal that was, a satisfy all deal, as it were. Johnson's not going to be able to do the same either. Let's face it, the way the referendum went and, as you've seen with Parliament, there is no deal that satisfies all. So, the pound's held up, considering the threat of a no deal remains. I think that's really largely because the markets really think that, Boris Johnson's not going to be able to pull, Britain out, come October 31st. We've heard the threat of, suspending Parliament to enable him to, pull Britain out. The real question is that really feasible? We've got to wait until the end of the summer recess, to then begin to hear the noise that's really going to build up, in the final couple of months, before the exit date. If there is any kind of hint that, Johnson really can deliver a no deal, you've got to think that the pound's got a lot more to go, on the downside before there's any recovery. The economy's already, contracting. The BOE is going to have, is the BOE going to have to step in before the Brexit date? It's all a bit up in the air at the moment. It's very quiet. It's very repetitive. But do expect things to change quite significantly, after the summer break.
To finish up, Bob, what else has caught your attention recently? Is there anything in particular we should be paying attention to?
Well, we've seen a material shift in monetary policy, even changing of the guards, from a political perspective. I think with the economy slowing down, after the global financial crisis, there's quite a lot of stress that is still in the economies, particularly with, in the labor markets, poverty's there. And I think, there's an undercurrent of discord, as it were. And I think that's the biggest threat that, we should be looking out for at the moment. You've got the likes of Iran, North Korea, Russia, China, to some extent being rubbed up the wrong way by the US with its sort of shift in foreign policy, as it were. Pushing these large economies, military might, as it were, into one direction could ultimately form an alliance, as it were. And, I think the last thing we need are the likes of China and Russia forming military alliances together, and even economic ones to fight off the West and the US in particular. Iran's been sitting there, ruffling Trump's feathers, and it doesn't look like they're going to be wanting to stop anytime soon. The real question is whether, the West and Trump will eventually have enough and, respond with some military force. The fact that they are behaving in the way that they are suggests that they've got some military backing, whether that's from Russia or China. So on the global field, I guess that's, one major thing that we should be looking out for. If there is any escalation in the Middle East, then we should be really concerned with that. The next thing to look out for is the prospect of even the likes of civil war. We see what we're seeing in Hong Kong at the moment. There's no reason why that can't stretch out to even the mainland. If Hong Kong can, fight against Beijing, then why can't the mainland? And we've got anti-immigration in Europe. We've got, white supremacy in the US. There's a lot of negativity going on at the moment. And, this could all sort of blow up and have a material impact on the economic outlook. So I think that would be, what I'd look out for. Geopolitical risk. I think that's going to be here to stay, particularly through Trump's presidency. And, if he does win a second term, then, expect more of this to continue.
Well, a big thank you to Bob, and thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this and would like to find out more, be sure to head over to dukoscopy.tv.